to all of you for joining us today on another episode of the Downtown Now webinar. For those of you who may not be familiar, Downtown Cleveland Alliance is the only nonprofit organization that's dedicated to building a more vibrant and dynamic downtown. We work with stakeholders to attract people, jobs, and investment into the city's core. And over the last year, we've been using the Downtown Now webinar series to chronicle the pandemic, the struggle for racial equity, and all that's been going on in downtown Cleveland. And as we sit here today, I hope everybody feels spring in the air. And in many ways, I think a moment that we've all been waiting for the last 12 months, that moment where we feel like downtown Cleveland is really poised to turn a corner. As we sit here today, over 6,000 vaccinations a day are being administered at the Wolstein Center on the Cleveland State University campus in downtown Cleveland. In just a couple of weeks, we'll have nearly 11,000 fans at Progressive Field for the Cleveland Indians home opener. A few weeks after that, the NFL Draft will be on downtown Cleveland's lakefront. In the month of May, the Music Box in the West Bank of the Flats will begin live music events. In June, Playhouse Square will resume live theater performances. The governor's talked about the possibility of Progressive Field being at full capacity by the 4th of July. In September, the Broadway series returns to Playhouse Square. In October, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony returns to downtown Cleveland and will be held in Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse for the first time. And looking ahead to next year, the 2022 NBA All-Star Game will be at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. And Cavs president Len Komoroski is promising us an epic year of concerts in 2022. But it all begins right now. I think there's excitement in the air and hopefulness, not just for downtown, but for the entire city as we prepare to really launch ourselves out of the pandemic. Typically this time of year, we would also be animating downtown with tens of thousands of visitors for the Cleveland International Film Festival, which has become such an icon for downtown Cleveland, such a core part of our identity. For the second year in a row, we'll have a virtual event allowing the film festival to reach an even larger audience. And we're going to talk about the film festival's incredible impact on downtown Cleveland, the importance of arts and culture to city building, as well as hearing about some of the nuances about this year's event. And we have the perfect guest to do that today. We're joined by Cleveland International Film Festival Executive Director Marcie Goodman. Marcie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, I think a lot of our listeners are familiar with the Cleveland International Film Festival, but some of them may not be. So I wonder if we could open up and just have you share a little bit of the history of the film festival, what it is, and what its impact has been on Cleveland.
Sure. Well, the Cleveland International Film Festival is going to be 45 years old this year. And that's old in the film festival world. We're certainly not the oldest, but we've been around a long time. We started on April 13th, 1977 at the Cedar Lee Theater in Cleveland Heights. And I think the first festival was maybe one film a week over the course of 8 weeks. But it grew, certainly, over the years. And we got to spend our first 14 years at the Cedar Lee. And then in 1991, our board voted and made the big decision to move the festival downtown, because at that point, Tower City Center was brand new. And we thought it was time to relocate and to really give ourselves the chance to expand our audience. So, but it was it was a hard decision. It was a scary decision. And in 1991, when we moved downtown, our attendance was 14,000. And then by the time we left Tower City, our attendance was topping 105,000. So it was a really, really great decision that the board made on behalf of the organization. And we always say that to be on our board or our staff, you do not have to like movies. I mean, it helps, but it's not the requirement. The requirement is that you are passionate about our community. And by our community, if we drill down a little bit, we mean about downtown Cleveland. So it's so important to us to be in the heart of our city. And we had a great run at Tower City. last year, 2020, the 44th festival was supposed to be our 30th and final year there.
Yeah.
And then this year we were supposed to move to our permanent home at Playhouse Square. And so what happened last year was not what we expected, nor is what's happening this year. But it's just so important to us to be part of downtown Cleveland, and that's ultimately not going to change.
Well, we're happy that the film festival made the decision all those years ago to come downtown, and we're delighted that you've continued to make your home here. It's had such an impact. I want to talk a little bit about. We'll probably bounce around a little bit, but I want to talk a little bit about this year's film festival since it's right around the corner, and wondered if you could tell our audience. Let's remind them when it is, what they can expect, and I know this is the second year of going virtual, but talk a little bit about the virtual experience and what might be different from last year.
Sure. So last year on March 11th, 2020, we were called to City Hall and we met with Mayor Jackson, and that's when he had a press conference and announced on live TV the cancellation of the film festival and the St. Patrick's Day parade because of the pandemic. And that was quite a blow to the staff and the board. We had worked, all year to present the festival, and we were very much in mourning. It really felt like grief for a while, but it took us just 2 weeks to pivot. And on March 25th, 2020, which would have been our opening night, we announced CIFF 44 Reinvented. And we unveiled our trailer like we would on a normal opening night and did all kinds of things. But the biggest piece of that was we announced that we were going to do an online festival in April. And at that point, we didn't even know what dates in April. That's how unsure we were that we could pull this off. So we just said April. But then just a few weeks later, we did it. And we've been told we were the first. I'm not sure if we were the first, but for sure we were among the first film festivals to pivot to being completely online in the world. Mm-hmm. And we got permission from filmmakers and distributors, and we were able to share 325 of our films with our audience, and it went really, really well. And so over the summer, the staff really agonized over what the next festival would look like. Would we be able to move to Playhouse Square? Would we be online? Would it be what's called a hybrid in the film festival world? And by the end of the summer, it became pretty clear to us that based on science and community circumstances, the only option for 2021 was going to be an online festival. Mm-hmm. And so the staff wrote a statement that we presented to our board at the end of September, and the board approved it. And then in early October, we publicly announced that CIFF 45 was going to be CIFF 45 streams entirely online, April 7th through the 20th, 2021. It was highly unusual for a film festival to make that announcement so far out, but we knew we weren't going to change our minds, and we knew it wasn't going to be it wasn't a secret. So here we are, 2 weeks from today. Will be April 7th. And we will open online. We have a platform just like we did last year, and we'll have probably about 115 feature films to share and 150 short films. But you're right, Michael, there are a lot of changes from last year. So what's happened in the past year is that we figured out that there's so much more we can do with the film festival. Last year, we didn't have the time. We didn't know how, but a year's gone by. We've learned from other festivals. We've learned how to do things ourselves. So for this upcoming festival, we know how to do pre-recorded and live filmmaker Q&As and conversations and panels and happy hours. And we're going to have online balloting so we can present our cash awards and just do whatever we can to make the festival feel as robust as possible and as much like the film festivals we can manage to do online. So we're really excited about all the new features to the festival, add-ons certainly from last year. And it's going to be a big adventure for all of us.
Well, your team did such an extraordinary job last year, really turning on a dime in what I know you described was a heart-wrenching decision and a really a difficult time period. But So impressive how the team came together and adjusted and created a terrific experience that I know reached a lot of people. I think you said 42,000 streams last year. Is that right?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yes, 42,107 streams,
To be
and
precise.
more or less. And so we had to decide what counts as a stream. And so we decided that at least 70% of the feature or the short had to be watched for it to count. And we're actually going to go with that same percentage this year. But what other festivals have done in the past year, we did not do this last year, but through their post-festival surveys of their online festivals, they've determined that an average of 2.5 people are watching a stream together at any given time. So if you were to take our 42,107 and multiply it by 2.5, we would end up with the 105,000 viewers that we're used to, which to me is just interesting.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens this year. But yeah, we had a lot of streams last
Do,
year.
do you have a sense with the online experience? And it's interesting that the number comes out with that multiplier to right
Mhm.
around what you typically might expect. But do you have a sense of whether you were reaching a different audience or a more geographically diverse audience than you might typically pull into downtown Cleveland?
We were able to track the top zip codes. I mean, all the zip codes, but the top 10 zip codes were equally divided between East Side and West Side, which is
Mhm.
exactly how we like it. And that's how it was with the in-person festival,
Okay.
which was great. Some differences for this year's festival are that last year it's called geo-restricted. We were restricted to Ohio for
Okay.
viewers, but this year it's the entire United States and its territories. Um, there are
Great.
some exceptions, but that's a change. And then the other thing is, this was true last year, but it's still true this year. Um, the festival more or less is on demand. So you can watch the films at 2 o'clock in the morning if you want to. You can watch at any time. There are only a handful of films that are scheduled, and that's by the distributor's request. And then the films in the festival have caps, which is no different from an in-person festival when distributors or filmmakers say you can only show or sell X amount of tickets. Well, we can only allow X amount of viewers. But I think that the geo restriction is the most interesting change. We are not marketing beyond our region. We're figuring that our film festival family will let their family and friends know that they can participate in the festival. But our focus is our community and our audience, and so that's not changing, even though the festival is more open to anyone in the country this year.
We had a chance to talk a little bit about this in preparing for today, and I think one of the issues that might be on everybody's mind is, has the pandemic over the last year impacted the production of films, and has that impacted the pool of films that are available to be shown at the festival?
Yeah, it has. We were wondering the same thing, and as it turns out, it has not for this next festival. We received almost as many submissions, close to 4,000, than we have the same amount as in recent years. And then our programmers were able to travel online to many, many more festivals than ever before around the world. And they got to see lots and lots of films. And so we think what happened was that when the pandemic hit, most of the films had been made. They may not have been final cuts or final edits, but that you can do from anywhere. And so the pandemic did not impact the films that were out there for us to choose from for this year. Now, next year could be a different story. We'll see. But there has not been a lot of production, certainly in the past year. So we'll see what next year brings.
Well, speaking of next year, I know we're all very, very hopeful, as I alluded to it in the introduction, that we're on a path to a more normal reality in downtown Cleveland, and we're very hopeful that we'll all be able to gather in person in downtown Cleveland to watch the Cleveland International Film Festival. Uh, Heading into last year's festival, your team made a big announcement about the future of the film festival, and I wonder if you could share a little bit with us, remind us about the future home of the International Film Festival, and maybe you could share how that decision came about.
Sure. So the festival now has a future forever home, and it is at Playhouse Square. We are a resident company of Playhouse Square, and we're very proud to be a resident of Playhouse Square. But yeah, our 30 years at Tower City were incredible, and Forest City was so good to us for the years that they owned the property, and then Bedrock stepped right in, and it was great to work with them. But the reality is that Tower City Center is commercial real estate, and we never knew from year to year if those theaters were going to remain open, if we could come back to them. And that's a really hard way to live as a nonprofit organization that's presenting a really big film festival. And so we had a location task force chaired by Jules Belkin for 12 years. This went on for 12 years. And we had to consider other options as we lived from year to year at Tower City very happily, but we couldn't sit still. And then and we wanted to stay as close to or in downtown Cleveland as possible. So that was another factor to consider. And then just 2 years ago now, in February of 2019, Gina Vernacci from Playhouse Square and I happened to have lunch, and I was just telling Gina the story of our location challenges. And Gina said, "What about Playhouse Square?" And I just looked at her and I was like, well, that would be a dream come true, but that's not possible because there are other things happening at Playhouse Square during the festival and this, festival time during the spring. And Gina said, "Well, let's take the next year and let's both dream and see what happens." And so that was February. And then in December, our board voted to permanently move the festival to Playhouse Square. So it took less than a year for all of us working together to make it happen. We love working and partnering with Playhouse Square because, like the film festival, everyone there has gotten to yes. That's where we all start. And it makes things so easy. So on December 19th, 2019, our board voted to move the festival to Playhouse Square in 2021 for our 45th anniversary. And remember that meeting very clearly. Wasn't that long ago. It's a huge celebration. There was champagne and toasts, and then 2 months later everything changed.
Well,
we're get there.
We're as excited as you are to have CIFF join the Playhouse Square community. What a terrific addition, and very grateful to you and your board leadership, and to Gina and her team at Playhouse Square for daring to dream and figuring out how to make it happen. And we're looking forward to getting together with you in person next year. But as you think about next year and returning to a live in-person event, now that you have 2 years of a virtual experience under your belt, do you foresee that virtual component being a part of CIFF's future?
We do. We are looking at this year as a bridge to our future at Playhouse Square, but an online component will be part of what we're doing moving forward. And we think that's going to be true of every film festival because there are a lot of benefits to an online festival. And among the most wonderful parts of it is that the festival becomes accessible to people whom, for whatever reason, cannot attend in person. Mm-hmm. And for us, that was such an aha moment to have that realization after last year's online festival. And so you want to keep that. I mean, I don't think any festival can afford to be completely in person and completely online. We'd have to double our staff and double our budget, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to have to come up with some kind of combination, some kind of hybrid. And we truly don't even have a clue as to what that's going to be. And we're not really going to start thinking about that until after April 20th. But yes, we will be in person and we will be online, whatever that's going to mean.
Well, we've talked about the huge impact that CIFF has had on Cleveland. And, one of the things I love about you joining the Playhouse Square resident companies is Playhouse Square is such a hub of arts and culture in downtown. And we talk all the time at Downtown Cleveland Alliance about what an identity this city has as a sports town. We're a great arts and culture town. And, I wonder if you could just, talk a little bit about, how you and your board, view the CIFF's role as part of the arts and cultural community here in Cleveland, and the role of the arts in the collective enterprise of city building that we're all in. What is the uh, what is the role in your view of the arts in an organization like CIFF in city building, and how do you think about that with your team?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right that I think we're so lucky to live in a city where arts and culture are so important and so supported. And I will say, and to not answer your question, but to say something that
That's
I want to
okay.
say, that with the in-person festival, we would hear every year over and over again from our guest filmmakers, and we would bring in like 400 guest filmmakers every festival, that they've never felt more welcomed and more embraced and more appreciated than they do here. And that's because we are Cleveland, and there is such a true appreciation for filmmakers as artists and for film as an art form in this city. And that was, that became so evident to our guest filmmakers. And they're our ambassadors. And that's who travels around the world to other festivals and talks about our festival in our city. And so I have to assume that that's true of every arts organization in town, and the artists that are connected to those organizations, and the feelings that they get by being here and being part of our city, either permanently or for a while. And so it's just incredible what we have to offer, and the ripple effect. We always talk about the ripple effect, and the ripple effect of our festival is unknown to us. We might hear about 0.1% of the impact of the festival on other people and places and things, but it's there. And that's true of our whole arts community and the impact on the world. It is on the world. So how lucky are we?
Well, I mean, speaking of the experience of the festival, I was surprised as we were talking the other day. Uh, Here you are leading this great organization, putting together this hugely impactful film festival that tens of thousands of people enjoy every year. And you said you typically don't get to experience it or enjoy it, but it sounds like you did a little bit last year. So tell us a little bit about that, like how
Sure.
you experienced the film festival, and what you got to do last year that you don't typically get to do.
I always say that the great irony of my job is that I don't get to see any of the movies because I'm not involved in the artistic or the programming side of things. That's not part of my job. I don't have time. But last year, when we were online, late at night, I got to sit down and watch films that were in the festival. And I said to my team, I had no idea how great our films are and how much fun it is to be part of the festival. And because even online, there was buzz. And you'd hear, my sister would say to me, one of her friends saw this movie and loved it. And I'm like saying to myself, well, I have to make time to see this. And last year, like any entity, the pandemic really hit us hard financially. And so we suddenly found ourselves with monthly finance committee, executive committee, and board meetings. And we had a monthly board meeting on the last night of last year's online festival. And you could just tell that everyone on that Zoom meeting was so antsy for that meeting to end, because we all had time to watch two more movies before the festival would end that night. And it was just so much fun to be part of that piece of things. And so I have every intention of watching movies again this year.
So suffice to say, you're going to be you're a strong advocate of maintaining the virtual component of the film festival.
Very, very selfishly, yes. Yes.
Uh, well, why don't we pause here for a moment, and Lauren, wanted to turn to you and see what questions we might have coming in from the audience.
Sure thing. We have one from Ginny. Thank you for the question, Ginny. Could Marcie talk about the learning curve of the audience and how people are now more able to handle it than they were a year ago?
Sure. And that is such a true statement. we had an online event in February, and it's called Get Shorty, and we did a survey afterwards that really showed us how much more savvy our audience has become, because the results from that survey were that for the most part, people did not have technical difficulties at all. So one of the best things about our online festival is that there is a CIFF Streams app, which means that if you have a smart TV and you have a Roku device or an Apple TV device, you can watch our films on your TV, which is just the best way to do it. But, you know, people have just gotten so much better at figuring out how to watch films or anything on any device. And we're poised. I mean, we have a support team. They will be working from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day of the festival. We have an email, streams@clevelandfilm.org, where people can email us and ask questions. We have chat on our website during those hours where people can engage with our support team as well. We have more FAQs than you could ever possibly want to read. We have how-to videos. So we're doing everything we can so that people can sort of figure out how to orchestrate an online festival. There's only so much we can do, especially during a pandemic. We can't really go to anybody's house. But, you know, as much as we can do, we are poised to help.
Great. Next question. What do you hope for the film festival, or what do you hope the film festival looks like for years to come?
Well, you know, Playhouse Square is our future forever home. And so we look forward to setting up shop there and developing and settling into that experience. But we also planning ahead. I see us as becoming much more year-round in our operations once we get settled into Playhouse Square and partnering with the other resident companies, because so much of what they do and will be doing can be complemented by a film component, we're hoping, and just working together. And in fact, our closing night film this year is called Best Summer Ever. It's a musical. And our community partner on the film is all the resident companies of Playhouse Square. And we think that is just the best partnership to lead us into our future. So that's our future. We actually can't wait to see what happens.
That's exciting. That's really cool. Really cool.
Does CIFF play a role in the production of films in Cleveland? Has there been an increase in Cleveland produced films since CIFF's inception?
Yes, there has, although not because of us, really. Our mission is exhibition and education, which means we show the films and do everything in our power so that our audience learns something along the way. And when we say what we do, we also say what we don't do. And what we don't do is production. But that is the mission of the Greater Cleveland Film Commission. And so whenever you read or hear about films being made in Cleveland or people being trained to be the workforce for film production, that's because of the Film Commission. But we work very closely with them. I serve ex officio on their board, and a representative from their organization serves ex officio on our board. And the way we look at it is everything we do complements everything they do, and everything they do complements everything we do. And Cleveland has just the most amazing film community, and it's way more than these two organizations. There are so many other festivals, and you know, CSU is a film school, and Tri-C does so much with film and other universities and colleges in the area, Oberlin. So the list is endless, and I can't even remember the question, but the answer is yes.
Well, Marcie, I'm glad you mentioned the Cleveland State University film school that's also in Playhouse Square. And I think another of those cool synergies that, you're not directly involved in film production, but I have to think that, boy, what a talent attraction assist the film festival can be, and what a message for prospective film school students at Cleveland State to know that we have this world-renowned international film festival in Playhouse Square that they can be a part of and enjoy and maybe make films that are featured one day at the festival. So it's just as you talk about the synergies that can occur with the other resident companies that you have in Playhouse Square, that is there's a lot to be excited about.
Yeah, we've talked about the film school a lot, and that we can't even believe that we will be literally connected to a film school.
Yeah.
And yes, although we don't do production, every filmmaker is going to be submitting his or her films to a film festival. And so, yeah, so here's one right next door. And there's a lot to learn as a filmmaker, especially a student filmmaker, about film festivals, and we have that to offer.
All right, next question from Kathy. Thank you, Kathy. Can you explain how the space will work at Playhouse Square in terms of the number of theaters available for showing films? How will you fit all the film showings in?
Under normal circumstances, I'd actually have the answers to those questions because it would be happening very soon. So that is something we will hopefully spend the summer figuring out. Playhouse Square has, I think, 11 spaces, and which ones we use will vary from year to year because it will depend on what else is happening with the other resident companies and other activities at Playhouse Square. But in any given year, we're expecting to use 5 or 6 of the spaces with probably capacities ranging from 150 to 3,000. And so, you know, it's really interesting because pre-pandemic, we were talking about, you know, how do we use the State Theater, which seats, you know, a few thousand people, but we're only going to sell 300 or 500 tickets to the film and make it feel intimate. And we were talking about, you know, curtaining it off and, you know, what we're going to have to do. And then when the pandemic hit and talk about social distancing, we were like, well, we could really spread out 300 people in a 3,000 seat theater. Right. So it's hard to say what the protocols will be by next April. You know, nobody can predict that. Whatever they are, we will abide by them. But we will have as much or as little space as we need. We are what we're calling right sizing the content of the festival this year. Our number of features is just over half of what it had been. Our number of shorts is much smaller as well. That's very purposeful. We would have done that moving to Playhouse Square as well. We were going to use the move as an opportunity to do that because any one person can only see so many films, and we had way too many. So we have reduced the number of films in the festival. That will remain true when we move to Playhouse Square, but it will be interesting to schedule, you know, how to get people in and out. And again, a lot really will depend on the protocols, which Playhouse Square, you know, is establishing, and we will follow.
Great. Another question from Jenny. Could Marcie talk about the high school program Film Slam to involve regional high schools in the film experience?
Yes, thank you. And I'm guessing that Jenny is one of my trustees, and although she's not a plant, she's asking great questions. So thank you, Jenny. Yes, the film festival's oldest education program is called Film Slam. It's 29 years old this year. And during an in-person festival on the weekday mornings, of which there are 7, we would bring students in grades 5 through 12 to the festival to watch films and to have Q&As with filmmakers. Teachers would get study guides in advance, and we would have teachers' workshops for them prior to the festival. Last year, of course, Film Slam could not happen when the festival was canceled. But when CIFF 44 streams ended, it was the end of April, and there was still time left in the school year. And teachers were suddenly teaching online, students were suddenly learning that way, and we realized we could share our content online, our Film Slam content for teachers. And most of the content is short films in foreign languages. And so the teachers just jumped at that opportunity. And we were so happy about that. And then over the summer, we worked with Open Doors Academy and did the same thing, but they gave us the chance to figure out how to do live Q&As with filmmakers and students, and that went really well. So by this past fall, we felt confident enough that we could announce Film Slam streams. And it's a year-round program for students in grades 5 through 12. It's online. And this fall, we had almost 35,000 students registered. And we screened a whole lot of films for, I think, 181 schools, maybe. The program is allowing us to expand throughout the state of Ohio and beyond. But my favorite part is that we had 55 Q&As, live Q&As with the students and filmmakers, and we took them to 15 countries. And obviously that would not be possible in person, but the program is ongoing. I think we probably have close to 50,000 students registered now. And during the festival, the 2 weeks of the festival, the kids will be seeing content from the actual festival, features and shorts. So we're just so excited and happy to be able to do this for teachers and students.
Jenny says, I'm watching from Naples, Florida. Lauren, an example of distance participation. Once again, thanks for incorporating my questions. And yes, I'm a board member. So thank you, Jenny. That's still great that you're asking questions. So next one, noting the success of the virtual format, will there be room for a virtual component in the next in-person event in future years?
I think right now the answer to that is yes. We really don't see a festival that will not have that. We're also making the festival accessible in a number of other ways. Of course, our foreign language films are subtitled, but for any of our live interactions with filmmakers, we're going to have sign language interpreters, and everything that's pre-recorded with filmmakers will be closed captioned. And we're even going to have our closing night film has a version with an audio description, so people who are visually impaired can hear description of the film. And so yes, there is online access, but there's all kinds of other accessibility that we're really focusing on as well.
Great. Noting the great Tower City to Playhouse Square move, are there other similar partnerships that have developed to level up the festival like that?
Well, we have a community engagement program, and it's for many years now been sponsored by Strassman Insurance Services. And that's where we partner with other nonprofit organizations in the area. And in an in-person festival, we would average maybe 150 partnerships. And this year we have, I think, more than 110. And so that the program really hasn't changed even with an online festival. And what happens is that we partner with organizations whose missions line up with films in the festival. And those organizations promote their films in the festival to their constituents, and we promote those organizations to our audience. And so we love this program and we love these partnerships. And when we talk about the growth that we had in person at Tower City over those decades, we attribute a lot of that growth to this community engagement program. Because it's enabled us to reach audiences that we could never, ever reach on our own. So we partner with other organizations. We're happy to partner with any entity and business up and down Euclid Avenue. Last year, when we were going to move, from Tower City to Playhouse Square, we had a day planned in August where we were literally going to invite everyone to walk with us from Tower City to Playhouse Square. And then there was going to be an open house at Playhouse Square, just, so people could get used to our new home. And so that we're not able to do that, obviously. But we can't wait to partner with all the businesses in our new neighborhood, our new district.
And I know we're a partnership here at DCA. We're doing Bring Food Home to watch your film. So look out for that. It'll be supporting the local restaurants downtown, and other neighborhoods as well. So what is the most beneficial takeaway from the virtual format, or from what you have learned, I think, over the past year?
Oh man. The most that's a really good question. I think one thing that we found, not good or bad, but just different. And this festival is for our audience and our filmmakers. And we love bringing filmmakers to Cleveland for so many reasons. And even though that's not possible, we're able to connect with filmmakers in such a different way with an online festival and around the world that could not happen in person. It just, it's hard to line up schedules and coordinate travel, et cetera, but online, it's kind of easier. And so when the festival starts, we'll announce all kinds of filmmaker conversations sponsored by PNC, that will involve panels and Q&As and, just great things. And we're able to bring filmmakers together in a way that we wouldn't be able to do in person because the timing just wouldn't work out. So we have perhaps filmmakers who are convening because their films all address a certain topic. That wouldn't be possible in an in-person festival, probably. So I think that's a really amazing takeaway, is that there are, some benefits to being online, that some things that can happen that just couldn't happen in person.
All right. Can you talk about the confidence and future of downtown Cleveland in the post-pandemic world? It's events like CIFF that help keep downtown vibrant and will help us with a strong recovery.
Yeah, I mean, we envision being part of a remarkable downtown Cleveland. I mean, we think everything's going to come back bigger and better than ever because this is Cleveland, for no other reason except this is Cleveland. Yeah. And that's Clevelanders, and that's what's going to happen. And we can't believe that we get to be part of it. And we'll be so happy to be a reason that people come downtown starting next spring, and hopefully people will come to the festival that perhaps have never been downtown before or haven't been downtown in a long time, and they'll want to come back. So we're really hopeful and we're really optimistic, and we get that from Gina Vernacci in Playhouse Square. I don't think you can be part of Playhouse Square without being optimistic. I'm not kidding. That's how it is when you're part of Playhouse Square. And so that's how we are. And it's going to be great.
Love that. How has the film festival changed over the years? So, beginning of time until now, obviously.
Yeah, the change has been dramatic and unrecognizable in a way, but because it's happened over so many years and in some instances been sort of incremental, kind of hard to realize. But just looking at our, the growth of the festival from 14,000 to over 105,000 is a lot. And the involvement of so many other organizations with the festival, and just building an audience that has really become a family. And so many people, including us, look at the festival each year as a family reunion. And so that, that didn't happen instantaneously. That developed over time. But we've tried so hard and we've worked so hard to be welcoming. To me as the executive director, and don't tell my programmers I'm saying this, but nothing is more important than customer service, including the films. Nothing is more important than customer service, because we always say that if you see a film you don't like in our festival, for one thing, don't tell the programmers, but chances are you'll try another. But if you have a bad experience at the festival with a staff or volunteer, we're never going to see you again. And so it's all about customer service. And so we've worked really hard over the years to get better and better and better at customer service. And even with the growth of the festival, which got a lot of attention from the media, our reaction was always, our focus is on better, not bigger. They went hand in hand for us throughout our years at Tower City, but that's really not what we were after. We were just after making the experience better for our audience from one year to the next.
Another one about experience and tying into that. In your opinion, where does Cleveland rank in terms of film festivals? What's unique about the film festival in Cleveland versus other cities?
Yeah, it's hard to, there's no apples to apples when it comes to film festivals. They're also different, and different number of days, different number of films, just lots of differences. Cleveland has a lot of film festivals, which are great, a lot of specialized film festivals. Our festival is what's known as a regional festival, which means we're here to serve our community, our audience, this area. We are not a market festival. We're not Sundance or Tribeca or South by Southwest. We're not a festival where distributors come to buy films, and therefore the celebrities are here and the paparazzi and the red carpets. We do not care about that. The important people to us are those who attend our festival. So we're not a market festival. We're a regional festival. We're a highly regarded festival throughout the world. Again, because we're so welcoming and embracing of the filmmakers and their films. So we have so much to be proud of. But everything we do is really, for the city, on behalf of the city. So we'll see, I don't know what the shakeout is going to be on all this, and which film festivals will remain and in what format or not. It's going to be interesting to see, but we're happy to still be here.
Great. How will the new home in Playhouse Square help grow the festival?
Yeah, that's we're going to find that out. But it'll be great if people experience Playhouse Square who might not have experienced the festival before, but have experienced Playhouse Square and feel very comfortable being there. But we'll see. The number one way that someone comes to the festival for the first time is because someone else brings them. And so we're going to rely on our longstanding audience to join us at Playhouse Square and to bring the people who are close to them in their world. And that's probably the number one way that the festival will grow once we get there. But although also, Playhouse Square has a huge base of attendees from all the other, resident companies of Playhouse Square itself. So maybe people who've never been to the festival but go to Playhouse Square for other reasons will try us out as long as we're there. Why not?
Yeah, there's presumably some crossover, but probably there's probably a lot of folks who make it to the theater who may not have experienced the film festival yet that would be quite drawn to it given the experience. So yeah, it seems like there's a huge opportunity to tap into the customers of the other resident companies in Playhouse Square, not to mention the Broadway series.
Yeah.
Well, we have a few minutes left. We'll leave that for closing remarks. Anything else you want to share with us, Marcie? Or Mike, that you would like to ask?
I'll just encourage everyone to visit our website, clevelandfilm.org. It went live last Friday with our program. And tickets went on sale to members on Monday, but tomorrow tickets go on sale to the general public. And so you can visit our website and get to know all of the films and buy tickets or passes, all access passes.
Well, Lauren has dropped the clevelandfilm.org website in the chat. Thanks for reminding everybody, Marcie, that the tickets go on sale to the public tomorrow. So this is very, very timely. And again, the film festival is running April 7th through the 20th. And we're excited about the film festival as always. We're particularly excited about the relocation to Playhouse Square and what that's going to mean for downtown in the future, and that this building block of another year of virtual films, we think will expose the film festival to a whole new audience and hopefully bring a lot more people into our city center next year. Marcie, I want to thank you for being our guest today. Thanks for all you do for the community and bringing us this wonderful, wonderful film festival every year. We really appreciate your time with us this afternoon.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
And I want to thank all of you in the audience for joining us today on another episode of Downtown Now. Thanks to Lauren and our entire team at Downtown Cleveland Alliance for making the webinar possible. And we will see you in 2 weeks at 3 o'clock for the next episode of Downtown Now.